So let's get into DeepSeek. And if you haven't heard of DeepSeek, you've probably been on a different planet. So DeepSeek, let's go through. Let me skip through all this here. Common questions we're seeing. Should we care if my employees or suppliers use DeepSeek? Should we ban it? Is it safe to use it if it's hosted at Microsoft or AWS, two providers that are providing hosted versions of R1? What are the implications? Will it be cheaper? Am I overpaying for stuff now? And this algorithmic invention that drove this, should we expect more of it? Is there a way to get the benefits without some security risk here? People, the basics here. So this is an open source product. This is much more open source than others. There's actually two models. One is Deep V3, and this is the more, almost call it traditional, but the, take a whole bunch of data, guess the next word based on the prompt. And V3 is very much like GPT-4 from OpenAI. It was released in December. So that's V3. R1 is the reasoning model. And I want to show the difference between reasoning and non-reasoning here in a second, to just make sure we're all baseline with the difference here. This is when you put the prompt in, initially comes out, and the robots or the AI engines do multiple things before you actually giving an answer. The reasoning model is more like GPT-01. So O1 is the reasoning model from OpenAI. It was released 10 or 15 days ago. And this is the one that really caught everyone's attention, drove the huge stock market decline of 3% and $600 billion of market cap, and probably about 30 to 50 different AI startups having their funding held a little bit. And what's really notable here, this is the first open source, at least that I'm aware of, open source model that has reasoning in it. So reasoning was the secret sauce that OpenAI had, the company that started as open source and then became closed source, and then had reasoning and kept dangling in front of everyone as AGI. And now this upstart AI lab in China has come out with an open source, which means you can see the code, you can see the weights. People are crawling all over it for the reasoning model here. It was developed in China by a Chinese-owned company here. And, lots and lots of claims and debates about how much it costs to develop it. I think that's interesting kind of sideline thing. I think what's particularly important about this for people who are deploying it, because most companies aren't actually building their own models, it's that it's a lot cheaper than some of the OpenAI models. I know Adam on our team, who's often on these calls here, he had some API calls he was using against OpenAI. And then we did the same, like he did a simple call, it was like $6, and doing the same thing with R1, their API was down to 27 cents. So radically cheaper here. So new vendor coming up with capabilities at or better than the best in class from OpenAI at a radically cheaper price, which is several of the reasons that it's caused a lot of turmoil, angst by some. Let me show, I want to show a quick demo here, the difference between a traditional, I put that in quotes, and a reasoning model here. So here's a prompt. Okay, I'm going to move over to OpenAI. So I'm going to, or OpenAI. Here's OpenAI. I'm going to go to 4. So this is not the reasoning model. This is their standard model. And I'm going to put the prompt in, create a marketing plan for our AI conference here. And this is going to go look at what it's trained at and then come back with its kind of next best thing. And this will come back pretty quickly here. So here's a detailed marketing plan, objectives. So this is the experience we've all been familiar with. Reasoning takes it to another level here. So reasoning means if I'll go to O3, which is their, there's no O2, there's O1 and then O3. O3 is the most recent reasoning model. So here's a new chat, excuse me, using O3 fast at advanced reasoning. And when I put this in, it'll start showing you here just a little bit of the reasoning or the steps it's taken to answer the question here. So you see the word reasoning, crafting a strategy. Now, one of the things that OpenAI does, it doesn't show you a lot of the steps within the reasoning. One of the things that's interesting about the DeepSeek, which I'm going to show you now, is that it does. So here's the DeepSeek interface. And if you don't turn this on, it does the V3, which is the standard one. Actually, we should do that right now. There's a standard one, and I'll hit return. Oh, no, I did it wrong. Sorry. New chat. Let me turn this off. So this is off. This is not highlighted. So here's the kind of non-reasoning one, the what's just doing the guessing the next best word based on your and here it's kind of show me this marketing plan for this conference that we have coming up in the fall here. Objectives, key. This is familiar with what we've seen before. This is the same thing as ChatGPT 4.0. Now stop that. Now if I want to do a new chat, now I'm going to choose Deep Think. That's the R1. That's the reasoning model from the Chinese company called DeepSeek. I'm putting in my quote in here, and what you're going to see is more steps. It's going to show you more of the quote reasoning that's happening here. And that's why they call it a reasoning model. Since it's thinking, really thinking. And certainly for prompts that have like a data analysis stuff, you'll sometimes see a thinking, you'll see a capture data, analyze data, format data, format the report. Now it's saying, okay, let's tackle a marketing plan for Boston. It's actually walking through how it's thinking. Start with email marketing. LinkedIn is a key platform, referral program. Now it's asking me a question. Did I miss anything? And then from all that quote thinking or all that reasoning, now it's coming out with a marketing plan. So this is an example of the quote reasoning models. The closed one, which have been popular and best in class, is O1, and the recent one is O3 from OpenAI. And here I'm demonstrating R1, the reasoning model from the Chinese company DeepSeek. The questions on that or comments or corrections? And great, let's keep driving then. A few other baseline on the DeepSeek. There's 3 different ways to kind of access the capability. You can use the browser, and that's what we just went through here. So through my browser, it's going through the internet to a chatbot application that's located in China, and that's going against the models. You can also download a mobile app, and this is an example of it, and that will have the mobile app running, the chatbot application running on your smartphone, and that connects through the internet to the API for this particular model running in China. Or you can set up an API call for your app and have it call it over there. Many different benchmarks out there. This is a popular one, which showing that DeepSeek R1, that's a reasoning model, is basically on parity from OpenAI O1, which was considered the best in class model up until the December. Mark Andreessen from the famed Netscape days and VC called this the AI Sputnik moment. I've heard multiple people say that people 4 or 5 years from now will still remember last week from all the rethinking of competitive positioning and roles these teams play. And Wall Street reaction, as most people saw, was pretty significant here. Some said it was overcorrection, but certainly having NVIDIA slide 17%, take $600 billion off market cap is material and get a lot of people's attention here. We did do demos. We'll skip that. There's the cheaper calls. Let's skip this. DeepSeek is pretty clear about its terms of use. Now here we're talking about the DeepSeek model hosted by the company DeepSeek in China. They store all the information in secure servers in China, and they are absolutely governed by the laws of China. That's caused a lot of people to be concerned. One concern, a couple different concerns in categories. One is bias. There's clearly, we can debate the word bias. There's certainly programming in there that make questions around the political thing. Is Taiwan part of China? Did Tiananmen Square happen? Did the tank man exist? All have answers that are very clearly written for the Chinese government here. Many people, so that's one kind of bias or bias towards China concerns.
Are you ready to
on the security side, a lot of people have wondered, can a phone home, even if you install it in your local laptop or at Microsoft, can it take your data and send it home? And you know, most security experts I'm reading are saying no. Microsoft and AWS were both comfortable enough that this malicious software or code wasn't in there. So that's why both Microsoft Azure and Amazon AWS is offering versions of US hosted versions of R1 and V3, as is Perplexity. But there's still lots and lots of debate. So another way to access this is to, instead of having the model hosted in China, you can have it hosted at a US provider that you trust, or if you trust Microsoft and AWS, that would be one way to do it. So you would build your own application or use one of their, I think Q might work with it, and access it via API, or you can use a Perplexity application, which has a reasoning model in there that's red arrows pointing at. Absolutely, people are banning it. U.S. Navy has banned in all capacity, both on private and work use cases. The U.S. Congress is, I certainly think the House of Representatives, there's another 30, 40 companies I'm aware of. We're certainly recommending, we are recommending that companies ban the use of DeepSeek for both not only their employees, but also suppliers who are using this, just an abundance of caution. What are the implications? Fabulous for the rest of us. We expect more efficiency and accuracy in inputs. Already, we've seen massive reductions in price or talks about a price from the major clothes providers. On an AMA on Friday, even Sam Altman was wondering if they should make some of their models free to everybody. Price performance is improving faster than Moore's law, almost hyper Moore's law. Lower total cost of ownership as we get more model flexibility. Remember, this is open source, so now every open source and closed source vendor out there is scoring over the techniques used by DeepSeek and now incorporating those into OpenAI or Mistral or Cohere or Gemini or whatever models they have. Certainly on the corporate side, you may be able to get some more purchasing power. There's some debate about if this is really going to lower the cost of inference. I think I haven't seen definitive conclusions on that. And I think we'll continue to see this real interplay between closed and open source models as they battle it out, and that will all bring more capability to people building applications here. And then just wrapping up, and then we'll open it up. Implications, John and I have talked about three of them. First and foremost, I think companies need to use this opportunity to realize this is another wake-up call to thinking through the shadow IT risk. So shadow IT is your employees using not your company's secure employee chatbots, but the open internet to solve problems at work. And they're doing that because all your top talent knows this is the biggest career accelerant. They know they can get their career advanced faster. They know they can get the work done better. And they're using these models and they're putting company information in it. You hope they're not putting company confidential information here, but boy, there's certainly a chance, and there's certainly a chance that people are putting it into the DeepSeek versions that are hosted in China here. Clear written employee use policy. We've been advocating this for a couple of years now. The company should have most employees we know want to do the right thing here. They just don't know if they're allowed to use Perplexity or not at work. We've also had 3 or 4 companies who know that they can't afford to offer secure employee chatbots to everyone and actually encouraging employees to use the public chatbots for things that don't have confidential information. Refine a press release or create a job description for an enterprise sales rep. That doesn't necessarily need to go through a secure employee chatbot. Um, but boy, ban the use of DeepSeek is our recommendation here. John Sfielkley, you want to walk through the next two?
Sure. Yeah, I think that the really important thing to think about in the economics and strategy is first, if you're a significant user, it's really important to not be dependent on one vendor. And there's also a series of issues around losing control of your cognitive assets. So if you're a significant user, we really recommend that you use a hybrid strategy that is a combination of on-premise or at least within your virtual private cloud environment, that you run your own models, as well as that you buy commodity or standard models from the vendors, and really that mix. And if you see, folks like Goldman Sachs, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Cigna, and so forth, they have that kind of combination. So second thing is really around making sure that you understand what the trends and availability is, and the ability to switch among vendors, because as these models get more and more capable, they're going to be a bigger and bigger part of your cost base. So, in a lot of industries, IT might be 3 or 4% of the cost base. I would predict that may double in some wins industries, or even triple, when you think about, like, because more and more of your activities now are going to be software that used to be labor or physical goods. So you really need to think about this strategically in terms of sourcing. It's not just like, cloud services. And then, so this has some very tactical implications. Don't do long-term contracts. Be prepared for an explosion of token usage, because, and all as Alden was telling me, when you go from a query to an agent, you can consume, his research agent, for example, is consuming between 150,000, 250,000 tokens per query. So, the chain of thought reasoning, and other, multiple experts and so forth can consume a tremendous amount. Then this last thing about keeping up, we heard from everyone, including the CEO of Hugging Face, Samba Nova Systems, a senior researcher at Google, a senior researcher from Meta. Everybody is having a hard time keeping up. So you really have to think about for yourself and for your organization, how do you do scanning, evaluation, and application? Like, what do you do? What robots do you use? What things do you listen to? What communities do you belong to? The community part we think is super important, and will be for the next 5 years or so, as the speed of this happens so quickly, to be able to have not only stuff you can read about and robots you can talk to, but human beings that you can talk to and ask questions with, and community learning. And then, this notion of obviously our news, we hope is an important part of that, at least for some folks in our community, to make that work. So this notion of economics and strategy and how you keep up is going to be central for you individually and for your organizations.